Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Doing Business in Bentonville. I'm Andy Wilson, and I'm the host today. And I'm so excited to get started with another podcast. I'm going to introduce our guest in just a moment. Before I do, I want to say to all of our viewers and listeners, thank you so much for all that you do. And thank you for sharing. Thank the message you send me on LinkedIn. I appreciate that. Keep sending me messages. The thing I want to congratulate all of our viewers and listeners on today is that we have now just reached over 100 countries. So thank you. It's amazing. We're humbled by it, and we appreciate all that our viewers are doing and listeners are doing. Okay, my guest today is Erika Jolly Brookes. Erika, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Andy. This is a real pleasure.
Well,
really
yeah.
Happy.
Well, it's really my pleasure. I'm going to tell you a bit about Erika, but before this podcast is over, you will understand why I admire this person so much. Erika is a friend, number one. Number two, we serve on a great board together, a board in a company located in Meridian, Mississippi, Southern Pipe and Supply, a phenomenal family-owned business. We get to share our times at the board meetings together, and the third thing is she is a marathon runner. I mean, listen, I'm impressed. So Erika, welcome, and tell us about your next marathon. Let's just start with that.
Well, I don't know if everybody should be impressed or question my life choices, but yes, I am running the London Marathon, which is exactly 12 days from today. So I'm in what anybody who's done endurance races of any sort, biking, running, or the trifecta, the Ironman series, and this is called the taper window. Mm-hmm. So I'm currently in the fitness has been gained, hay is in the barn, so to speak, and just 12 days to go until I line up with a bunch of other folks and 56,000 people in London for the London Marathon. I'm really excited.
Well, congratulations in advance. I look forward to hearing all the details about that.
I'll bring my medal to the next set of board meeting.
Good. Well, great. Well, now, Erika, you have a marketing background, and we're going to get into that marketing background. It's very extensive. How many years have you been in marketing?
I have been in marketing my entire career. I was lucky to find marketing, or marketing found me, my first job. So I've been in marketing for 30 years, and I've been in technology the entire time too, which probably makes me the old guard. I hate to put old in front of it, but 30 years.
Well, that's wonderful. And you're going to get to listen and hear and watch today as Erika really dives in to this whole marketing piece. And you're currently a chief marketing officer with a great company.
Yes.
Tell us, we're going to come back at the end more about your company, but give us a bit about your company today.
Yeah, I'm super excited about my new company. The team is amazing, and the problem that we're solving is amazing. So the company is called Energy Cap. It's been around for 40 years, which is really impressive in the technology space. There's only a handful of 40-year plus businesses. Microsoft is one, and Oracle's another. And so is Energy Cap. So that's exciting. But we essentially help one of the most unmanaged resources, actually, across every sort of facet, consumer and commercial, is energy. And we effectively help businesses, higher ed, retail establishments, federal government, local government, schools, you name it, manage their energy costs and their utility costs. And we use technology to do it. So it's a really exciting space to be in. I'm really thrilled to be part of the team.
Well, it sounds wonderful, and we're going to make sure that people can find your company there on our website. But I want to come back to that because I think it's fascinating what you're doing today, and large companies and universities around the country. So we'll come back to that. Now let's talk marketing. Okay, this 30 years of experience. So let's just jump into it. And currently today, there's so much going on in marketing, and it's everywhere. And so as you look today into marketing, what advice do you have for our viewers and listeners on how to stay ahead in the industry trends and ensure that the marketing strategy remains relevant today with all the change?
So I think the most difficult challenge facing marketers today is speed. Velocity today is very different than it was even 10 years ago. And so marketers today have a great challenge in staying up to date, really on a combination of things, not just who they're targeting, who their target customer is, their target buyer, and their current customer, and how they're feeling, thinking, and what their product and brand is resonating to them, but also the tools by which to reach them. So AI has become so incredibly prolific, and it can be daunting for marketers, particularly experienced marketers, or just anybody. Like we learn how to do our vocation, whatever way it is, in a certain sort of process. And those processes and frameworks are being disrupted today. So I think the most challenging thing for marketers today is speed. And, sure, speed kills, but speed also is a competitive advantage in today's market. So I think that's the biggest challenge.
So speed. Well, let's. I mean, you mentioned AI. Since we're there for a moment, I mean, AI has had such an impact, and it seems to be it's just the beginning. Every day in the news, there's billions, not millions, but billions of dollars being spent on AI and improving it, the research. So is there anything there around AI? If you would tell the marketing experts, this is how I would use AI.
So I've been even in my new role, I've been finding incredibly new ways to leverage AI. So one of the things that's really cool is every company can build their own, I'm going to call it LLM or Chat GPT instance, where you just feed it all this information so that it gets more and more intelligent about your customers, your market, your products, your services, and your competition. So that's one of the things that's been really interesting for me is being part of a company that has stood one up a long time ago and able to take advantage of it. So one of the things I've done recently is we use tools here to record sales calls and customer calls. And it creates a transcript, and these transcripts are incredibly useful. And the particular tool that we use is a tool called Gong, Gong. And so recently I downloaded, I'm new. I've got to understand the customer as quickly as possible. I've got to accelerate and ramp my understanding about this business and our market and our customers as quickly as possible. And so it would take I could go and conduct my own customer interviews. I will still go do that. But I downloaded 10, 12, 15 calls from different types of personas, from different industries, and I uploaded it into the Energy Cap ChatGPT instance and asked for a number of different data points to be synthesized for me. And in the span of 3 minutes, what used to take 3 months, Andy, I got here are their pain points, here are the solutions they're seeking, here's the internal mechanism by which they're measured, here's where you haven't. I mean, it just gave me an entire buyer persona framework in a span of 3 minutes.
Well, so speed, and same thing you said at the very beginning of our podcast, you talked about speed. And so now you're using AI as speed. And, I was reading this morning that the CEO of Walmart, Doug McMillon, was talking, and he was talking about AI and how they're using AI into the retail sector. And he said we can cut months off the time from product to customer, months. That's huge. That is huge. So I think the word would be embrace it, learn from it, how to apply it into your business, and because of speed, because what you said at the very beginning, speed.
I think the organizations that encourage their team to engage and utilize AI tools and find new use cases are going to have a true competitive advantage. Actually, something I was talking to our CEO, Sean Layton, about last night. That is something that we're doing a pulse survey right now. What's our employee satisfaction? What's engagement like? Over time, I could see us easily, and we've added in some, how comfortable are you using tools and what tools do you use? That's a starting point for making people feel like it's okay to use these things at work to do my job. But then also providing learning and capabilities in addition to tools. The companies that think about how to utilize AI to deliver to their customers faster and more efficiently and cleaner and better are going to be really the ones who are going to win. It's a real this whole AI business is really going to disintermediate companies.
Right. hmm Okay. As you stepped into your new company now, and I know you're excited about it. Again, we're going to talk more about it. As you step into it, share with us, what's your overall vision of the marketing department? How can you align that quickly to the company's broader goals, things like that? So if someone is new and you've been in multiple marketing jobs in your career over 30 years, so you can use other examples, of course, but what advice would you give someone stepping into a new organization and a new role today? And how then would you, create the overall strategy and vision for that organization?
So the first thing that I would say is my philosophy about marketing is and it's interesting because I've talked to people who've had different experiences in their career, and marketing of, I'm gonna call it, 1990 and marketing today are very different, particularly in the software world. So, I do software as a service. They call it SaaS today. But my belief is that marketing is a significant contributor to the growth of a company. And so that means everything from how do we help build what we call pipeline, which is prospective customers who will buy from us. How do we build brand and what's its role in building pipeline? And then how do we deliver new products and services to the market be successful for our customers? That's a much broader remit for marketer than probably the marketer of 1990. The marketer of 1990 really thought about how do they build top of funnel awareness, and didn't think as much about how do I help activate those prospects and customers all the way through the cycle. And then once they are a customer, how do we ensure that they're happy? We want really happy customers, because advocates are a really big part of driving your overall brand message back to the market. So that's my general view and philosophy about marketing. And so it's a broader remit. It's not just, hey, marketing contributed X to the company. It's what are we doing together with sales, with product, with customer success in order to be successful against our market opportunity.
Great advice. Great advice. Let's stay with that just a moment, because things that come to my mind was as you start into this new organization, how do you take and really look at what I would call structure and collaboration as you enter a new team like this? How did you do that in the past, and how are you currently doing it?
It's a really great question. So I think I just came from an offsite the team had in New Orleans, and we activated quickly around a customer / prospect event. It was like, let's get together. So one of the things that I think is fundamental is know thyself, and then to know others. And so we spent some time using some personality diagnostic tools, and basically said, this is an open dialogue. If you're comfortable sharing, this is not forced. But everybody was interested in engaging around, here's my profile. And there's a lot of different tools out there today. You can use DISC, you can use Emergenetics, there's a whole bunch. You use Gallup Strength Finder. But understanding the full cycle of each individual's personality is a really big deal, because not everybody needs to be the same. In fact, it's better if there's differentiation on the team. Someone who's really good at concept and somebody who's really good at details, they can be a great team if they understand that that's where their strengths and opportunities come from. So we as a team went through and shared our personality frameworks, and we had a really open discussion about it. And what's important about that is there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. You are what you are. You can work on your weaknesses, but we can also maximize our strengths and leverage other people's augmented strengths to your weaknesses. And then the last piece of it is understanding where points of friction come. Points of friction come on team when you have differences. And once you understand what your differences are, you can increase trust and decrease mistrust. And so we spent a half of a day-ish, 2 or 3 hours, just talking through that, and even identifying areas where, do you remember when we had a conflict over blah? Now it makes sense to me. You were talking concept, I was looking for details, or you're massively extroverted and I'm an ambivert or introverted. And so you were ready to check out and I was still, like, let's talk. But those things really matter. And I do think it is a fundamental step in building trust. And ultimately with building culture and teams, you have to be vulnerable. you have to trust, and you have to seek to understand. And if you do those three things, you can really start to build a framework of belief that we as a group can do anything together.
Well, I think that's excellent advice. And, I'm so glad you mentioned trust, because trust is the foundational, as you mentioned, it's the foundational principle. And, everything, everything sets on that trust. There it is. And so, wonderful. So as you think about, continues to think about a new team, what KPIs would you recommend people to measure at the very beginning, to get them on track? What are some advice there?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we certainly track brand awareness. How aware are, and there's sort of a couple categories of brand awareness. There's awareness that there is a solution that exists to solve my problem. So we call that solution aware. Then there's actual brand awareness. How aware are people of Energy Cap? And there's two categories inside of brand awareness. There's what we call aided, which is if I say the words, did you know Energy Cap does X, Y, and Z? Oh, yeah, I've heard of them. And then there's unaided, which is without recall, if I said, describe for me a utility management platform, I would say, oh, I know one. It's called Energy Cap. So that brand awareness is a really critical measure. You can't sell something to somebody if they don't know the solution exists and they don't know you exist. So that's a pretty big one. These are problems that companies like Walmart do not have, but they are challenges for growth-based companies, which is thinking about, what do people know about us? So that's really important. The second one, and this is a bit of a differentiation, I think, for marketers across different market segments, is pipeline. Are we building new and prospective customers, and do we close those customers, and how are we contributing to that revenue? So I'm a big believer that marketers can be directly tied to revenue. So those are the two biggest things, which is building the framework for one, and then building the analytical support to be able to have a conversation with your counterpart in sales or growth, which is how are we as a team building new revenue for the company?
Well, okay, wonderful. You mentioned customers. Let's talk about that for a moment. So what approach do you take from customer feedback and market research? What are your thoughts there and advice?
So customers are your first and fastest path to finding a new customer.
Yeah.
And today with social and e-commerce, that's never been more true. I mean, when you look back at what happened with social, it really put customers in the driver's seat of driving purchase consideration and intent. And so to me, that relationship with the customer, it should have always been important. We shouldn't have needed
right
relationship with our customers through, the various social media platforms that are out there. But that really was a reckoning for many of us.
Right. Yeah.
And so to me, the key there is, once they have purchased your product, do they have an amazing or average or better than average experience using the product? And then where and when do they get their surprise moments of delight that they weren't anticipating? And how do you talk to them about that? And how do you maximize that for future customer growth? And then where were there places where maybe there wasn't a delight factor that you can refine and do better for the next time? So that customer experience is paramount to me in understanding how to actually find additional customers, but also convey the right message to prospective customers, and also deliver on the customer experience that you promised.
Mm-hmm. Are there specific touch points around positive or negative customer experience? Anything there that you would call out to really focus on?
One of the things that we measure specifically in the world of software is the time to value. It's actually specific. We talk about TTV, or time to value. And if you buy a product in retail, and it's Easter, so I go buy some great chocolate product at the end cap. I eat it. I have had, the serotonin boost is complete. The time to value is pretty quick. In the world of software, often, particularly if there's data involved in the success of the product, the time to value can take longer. So if I sign a contract with a customer, or I even as a buyer, when I've signed contracts, and it takes me greater than 90 days or greater than 6 months to actually see the value of the product, that's not great.
Mhm.
So one of the key metrics that we talk about a lot is what was the time to value for the customer? They're spending a lot of money for these products. How are we ensuring that they feel very quickly they got the value for what they purchased? And again, it can't be immediate if it needs to be good, but it needs to be progressively showing them value along the way.
You know, one of the things that in my previous role at Walmart, we traveled all the time to listen to the customer, to talk to the customer, to ask questions. We're in the stores, the clubs, listening and talking, asking questions. Today, technology can help with that so much, and especially with all the e-commerce online. This we talked about earlier in our conversation before the podcast. So, is there anything there, a
Yep.
couple of touch points there that you would say this is critical?
So there's a couple things. I'm a big believer in community, and I'm both believer in community and niche communities for driving a real understanding of customer and customer pain points. We actually spun one up a while ago at Energy Cap, and it's called our Energy Cap Heroes. And it's a community of our customers where they can engage online with one another, but also engage with us. And so what I like about that is you get your product organization, your customer success organization, your marketers, you get everybody more closely aligned with our customers, and you can hear them really quickly. So I'm going to call it niche communities. Another way for me to explain this is I'm part of a CMO community. That CMO community, which is run by a technology vendor that I have certainly used, but I don't have to use, they bring me together to find peer-to-peer sharing, and we're very quickly saying that worked, this doesn't work, try this, talk to that person. So companies that actually harness their own communities, their own niche communities very quickly, and there's technology to facilitate that, have a real quick touch point that can be accelerated throughout the organization. Again, it's about speed and how quickly does the understanding get throughout the entire workflow of the organization. So I think that's a really critical path. You can do CSAT surveys and tracking studies and all that kind of stuff, but those are really point in time. And when you put a community in place, you get to hear those voices just like you went to stores in a way that you didn't before. So I'm a big believer in leveraging technology community platforms and bringing your audiences together.
Now, let's talk future for a moment. Okay, this is so good. You're doing a great job. Thank you. I knew you would, Erika. This is good. I'm learning a lot. I am learning a lot, and I know our guests are. So, as we think about this whole industry, as we think about it, let's look forward to 3 years. That's a long time. I should say 1 to 3 years, right? Because it's changed so rapidly. But let's just talk the future for a moment. What do you see the biggest challenges in the future of marketing?
So I have some macro themes, and then I have some specific. So we'll
Okay.
start with the macro themes.
Okay.
One of the things that you and I have talked about, and we've talked about as part of our shared collaboration and board work, is today the workforce today is more multi-generational than it ever has been. And that means that common understanding and context is really fragmented across all the different sort of functions that bring up an organization, and adeptness or skill set, and communication styles and preferences. So I think that's an interesting challenge for us over the next 1 to 3 years. How quickly do we, as an entire multi-generational workforce, adapt together in this changing system that's around us? So I think that's a pretty big deal. I always joke around. My husband's like, I'm just gonna call them. I'm going to go to the store. I was like, I'm definitely not doing that. I'm going to send a chat message. So, I mean,
Yeah.
there is a communication preference. There's technology enablement for it. So when you think about that, and you think about how you deliver customer experiences and products and make people really happy, that's an adaptation every business has to think about. So I think you've got multi-generational workers and you have a multi-generational buyer audience. I think that's a pretty big challenge for us over the next 1 to 3 years. some things are getting really sophisticated. You see an Instagram story, you can buy straight from Instagram now, and you use your Apple Pay, and the next thing you know, it's sitting on your front door. Um, the ability to return something today is as easy as I print the label at home, and there's drop boxes at Whole Foods for Amazon delivery. So this whole sequence of change is a pretty big deal. The second one is definitely AI. And I would be, well, maybe not the last person to ask, but I am not the best person to ask how much that's going to change. I think there are some of the cognitive abilities of AI is going to be a real game changer for us in that time frame that you talked about, and how that plays out will be really fascinating. How tools are enabled, what that means for the type of work we do, what that means for speed of delivery is going to be really interesting. But the AI tools are only getting smarter. I also believe the AI tools are going to get more expensive. So right now, it's a real adoption model. It's going to get a lot more expensive to deliver AI tools within our organization in the next 1 to 3 years.
I think that's great advice. And back to your multi-generational discussion, I see that, in my work where, we're cross communicating to multiple generations. One size does not fit all, and I think that's where you can't package it and push it down everyone's throat. It does not work. It's got to be multi-generational. I think that's critical and if I had to call out the number one obstacle or the number one for the future in my work as here doing business in Bentonville or as a consultant, it's multi-generational.
It is. And people are working longer than they
Yes, definitely. I'm an example of that.
Right.
Yes, I'm an example of that. So many of us, and I think it's, thank goodness the health issue is one, and all of that. But absolutely, people are really working longer because they're enjoying it. Many is that they're just still healthy enough to enjoy it and they embrace the learning.
Yes. And I think some folks, myself included, and I think you too, like I look at the change that's happening now and I've always enjoyed it. Like, oh, great. Internet's the thing. Let's go do that. Cloud's the thing. Let's go do that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Social media's the thing. So I don't want to miss this. So for
yes.
me, it's a really an exciting time to be part of what is a significant change in how we work, how we engage, how we connect, how we buy. So to me, it's exciting. And I think there's a lot of other people who feel that way. And it's more, there's actually a woman on my team, she loves to make fun of me. And there's another gentleman, because we put two spaces after a period. It's more significant than the Oxford approach to grammar, to your point about you can't package it and think about delivery and distribution of information enough right now. How, when, where, and best will this be received? It's a pretty significant issue.
Okay, I have a couple more questions. As I do want us to talk a bit about your new company and that you're part of it, because it's fascinating. But before we get to that, okay, maybe another question for sure. But as you look at across the board, let's just talk general marketing for a moment. And what would be, if you can do this? And I didn't ask you earlier, so here we go. But what marketing campaign you see today that's absolutely great that you would call out, just over a broad view, and maybe one that needs some assistance?
Oh, one that needs assistance. Oh, hater.
Yeah, right.
Funny though, we'll be watching some program which I may or may not be paying attention to, and then an ad will come on.
Yeah.
And my husband wants to speed through those, and I say, "Wait, can you go? I want to watch that?"
Yeah.
He's like, I said, I'm not the only person who likes to watch ads. There's a lot of marketers out there who want to see what other people are doing and what it looks like. So, I'm a runner, and I think some of the very targeted runner persona campaigns that are out there today are really, really good. And what their message is on point, and their use of influencers and social media is on point. But then even in an environment like I was in New York last year for the marathon, running the marathon. They did an entire, because we're the finish is for the New York City Marathon. These brands, and I'm telling, they're New Balance, Hoka, Nike, Puma. They all do this amazing job of just doing an entire takeover in New York City. And it felt like runners were running New York for 3 or 4 days. Everything from the turnstiles and the subway to the billboards to, the bus stuff, all targeted to runners. So what I think that is a good example of is understanding very persona focused, and it's a large addressable market. It's not a tiny market. It's a
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
understanding that addressable market and being clever and creative specifically to that experiential opportunity. Sure, there's 60,000 people running, but there was probably of those 60,000 people, let's say everybody brought 2 people to watch them. That's another, 120,000 to 200,000 people, plus all the city people in New York City and all the people who are home who wanted to get in, who couldn't get in because 800,000 people applied to that race and couldn't get in. And so then they see that content. So it really was a mass consumer execution. And I would say all of those brands did an exceptional job doing it. And as a marketer, I can't wait to see what happens in London. I'm guessing it's this.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about London from you.
One of the billboards I saw was, you've run hundreds of miles. You only have 26.2 left to go. And
yeah, wow.
You run 300 or 400 miles as part of a training cycle. So like, you're like, from a marketer's perspective, but also runners, I'm like, yeah, 26.2. Where do you go? Let's get that done.
Right.
Really cool, right?
Yeah. Well, I think also you've given us great advice, Erika. Thank you for that. I mean, you've given us really broad advice. What comes to my mind is you're talking about some of the best campaigns and some of the advice you've given us to know their customer and so many other things you shared with us today. So wonderful. Now let's talk about your new company. Let's talk about Energy Cap. What do you do there? And tell us about the company.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what's really cool about what we do. Okay. We've been around for 4 years, but energy, and maybe we'll just roll up utilities inside of energy. So this is power, electricity, water, sewage. But really, if you just started with energy as your primary utility, it's one of the most overlooked data sets. And really, if you think about it we think about a lot from a consumer perspective, because we get those bills, particularly if you live in the South in the summertime, and if you live in the North, those bills in the wintertime, we're like, wow, all of a sudden my so-and-so power bill is really out of control. The reality is, that's true in businesses. Every building, every department, every dollar of operations is basically overlooking this massive expense, this utility expense, which is largely driven by energy. And so, most organizations can't answer very basic questions about those costs. And part of it is we get these bills after the fact. You consume something in point A, you get the bill in point B, or sometimes C as it relates to water. So it's really hard. So if utility costs make up 10% of the operating expense of most businesses, and sometimes larger if they have a huge footprint and a lot of buildings, and rates are really volatile. Rates are volatile for a whole bunch of reasons, including consumption and the cost of producing the energy. It becomes and there's decarbonization mandates still in existence. The reality is it's no longer predictable expense. And most businesses really need to and it's not optional to manage anymore. You have to get it. So we talk about, how do you get the chaos of your utility costs under control? And specifically, how do you move them out of spreadsheets? So today, most energy managers, if there is one, or a building facilities manager, they're trying to track these expenses in a spreadsheet. And think about that. You have University of Georgia, that's one where I read today, has hundreds of buildings. And those buildings are of various different ages. And so their HVAC systems are of various different ages. And so now I'm trying to track a data set. And, if I'm a building manager, I have a lot of great skills. I probably started as boots on the ground, doing squish tests where there were water problems, and worked my way up to being now the VP of operations or VP of building management. I'm not necessarily an Excel spreadsheet jockey. And so my ability to actually analyze this data gets really challenging. I might be able to look at 1 month prior, or 2 months prior, or 3 months prior, but finding the anomalies is really challenging. So what we do is we basically capture all that data for you. We literally ingest years worth of Excel data called we call it bill capture, into our platform, and then very quickly using AI and machine learning, help you identify, first of all, anomalies. Where do you have a problem? Like we call it the oopsies, something that is broken, a water line that is broken, an HVAC system that is operating at not at over capacity. So fix that first and foremost. Second thing we do is we help you start to evaluate rates. And rates is the most volatile outside of errors, building maintenance things that you just can't know by managing 100 plus buildings. But then after we fix that, we help you understand, wow, my rate here is really different than it used to be 2 months ago or 2 years ago. And now it's a conversation for me to have with my utility provider about why. So we unify all these bills, meters, operational data into a single source of truth. And it really puts building managers, controllers, AP managers into the driver's seat on managing what is basically, like I said, 10% of their overall operating costs. It's really cool.
It is. Now, what's the website so people can go to it?
www, or as we used to say, www.energycapcap.com.
Okay. Well, we'll put that on our website for sure and all that. Erika Brookes, it's been such a pleasure having you on Doing Business in Bentonville. I can't tell you how wonderful it has been. And one other thing I have to say about you before we let you go is that to all of our viewers and listeners, one of the people behind helping me make this decision around Doing Business in Bentonville podcast was this lady right here. I went to her for advice, and I asked her advice. I said, I'm thinking about a podcast, and she gave me great advice. And we had multiple conversations. And Erika, I will never forget, and I appreciate you so much for your wonderful advice. Thank you.
That's really gracious of you. As I said, you're the talent.
No,
you're the idea of the operation. I was just facilitating ideas for distribution.
Yeah, you did it. You did it. Well, Erika, wonderful job today. Again, thank you so much. Best to you in London, and I'll probably see you at a board meeting prior to that, hopefully. And but Erika, great job today. It's such a pleasure, and best to you and your family. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Andy. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.